Imagine a deal so bad it ties the city's hands for 75 years. That's exactly what happened to Chicago in one of the most controversial deals in modern city governance. In 2008, then Mayor Richard Daley made a move that would forever change how Chicago handles its parking. The city sold the rights to its parking meters to a private company, Chicago Parking Meters LLC, for a jaw-dropping $1.1 billion. But here's the catch. Chicago has to pay this private company 100% of its parking meter revenue for the next 75 years. That means every time you feed a parking meter in the city, none of that money stays in Chicago. It all goes straight into the pocket of investors, and it gets worse. If streets are closed for public events like the Chicago Marathon or Street Festival, Chicago still has to pay Chicago Parking Meters LLC for the parking revenue that they would have made if the streets were open. So let that sink in. The city pays for revenue that's not even collected. And it doesn't stop there. If Chicago wants to remove or replace a parking meter, even if it's to build a bike lane or a bus lane, they have to pay the company for the future revenue that meter would have generated, all the way until the deal expires in 2084. So who are the people behind this deal? Chicago Parking Meters LLC is actually a partnership between Morgan Stanley Infrastructure and the Macquarie Group, two of the largest financial firms in the world. Morgan Stanley, with its deep pockets, and Macquarie, an Australian investment bank, saw a golden opportunity to rake in millions. The two firms set up this deal and pocket the profits, while Chicago foots the bill. The critics have slammed this deal as a massive blunder. At the time, the city was facing a $400 million budget shortfall, and this short-term cash infusion seemed like a quick fix. But what Daley didn't realize, or chose to ignore, was the long-term consequences. Here's the financial kicker. Those 30,000 parking meters generate about $200 million in revenue annually. That's a substantial chunk of money and has been leaving the city every year since 2008. By 2084, Chicago will have paid over $5 billion to this private company. And don't forget about the inflation factor. The city is stuck with this really shitty contract that doesn't account for future changes in demand, urban development, or even population growth. So what does that mean for my peeps in Chicago? Higher parking rates, less control over the city's infrastructure, and a loss of millions. Now, almost 15 years later, the deal is still in place, with 59 years remaining. Despite multiple attempts to challenge it, no one has really found a way to break that contract. Chicago is stuck paying this corporate juggernaut, and there's no clear path to any freedom. Sometimes a deal looks too good to be true, and sometimes it's a mistake that haunts you for decades. So next time you're feeding a parking meter in Chicago, remember, you're helping fund a private investment that lasts well into the next century.